They say death is the ultimate equalizer. But in the world of the living, it often serves as a starting point, a spark that ignites chaos. When Victor Lorne, a pharmaceutical tycoon, died suddenly, it was more than just the end of a life. It was the beginning of a battle. A controversial will, a multimillion-dollar inheritance, and an estranged heir set the stage for betrayal. But what really caught my attention were the attempts on that heir's life. This wasn't just about greed, it was about secrets. Dark secrets buried under layers of wealth and ambition. Secrets that would push a family to its breaking point and turn loved ones into predators. Stick around because this story will show you how far people will go for power and what they're willing to sacrifice for revenge. My name is Haider Graves, and I've been called a lot of things over the years. A seeker of truth, a skeptic, even a pain in the neck to those who think they can outsmart justice. But to me, I'm just a detective who refuses to look away. This case, it was different. I wasn't just solving a murder, I was dissecting a life. Victor Lorne wasn't a saint. He built an empire with ruthless ambition, leaving a trail of broken promises, betrayed loyalties, and shattered lives. When he died, it wasn't just the end of a powerful man. It was the beginning of a story no one wanted told. And I was the one to tell it. Victor Lorne's death was sudden, a heart attack, or so they said. But when a man like him dies, it's never just a simple matter. At the scene, there were no signs of struggle, no immediate red flags. Just Victor, slumped in his designer armchair, the picture of wealth and power even in death. But here's the thing about power. It attracts vultures. And as soon as the news broke, they descended. Victor's family, his competitors, his supposed friends, they all came to pick at the bones. What they didn't know was that Victor left behind more than just a fortune. He left behind enemies, secrets, and a will that would light the match to an inferno. Victor's will was like a ticking time bomb, and when it was read, it detonated. His estranged daughter, Eleanor, a woman the family barely acknowledged, was named the principal heir. The Lorne family, who had been circling the estate like sharks, were stunned. They had expected everything to be theirs. Eleanor wasn't just an outsider, she was a reminder of the cracks in Victor's perfect facade. The room erupted into chaos, shouting, accusations, threats. But Eleanor? She just sat there, her expression unreadable, as though she knew the storm was coming. And she was right. Because that was the moment the real danger began. The threats began almost immediately. At first, they were subtle, a poisoned drink at a family gathering. Eleanor had taken only a sip when she started gasping for air. The doctors called it an allergic reaction, but I knew better. Someone wanted her dead. But who? The jealous relatives? A disgruntled employee? Or was it something deeper, tied to the secrets Victor had worked so hard to keep? Eleanor's survival wasn't just luck, it was a warning. Whoever was behind this wasn't going to stop. When things get messy, I bring in Adam. He's not just a tech expert, he's a genius. A hacker with a moral compass, if you can believe it. If there was a digital trail, Adam would find it. I knew this case would need more than just boots on the ground. We needed to follow the money, the emails, the encrypted files. And Adam? He was already 2 steps ahead. Victor's family wasn't just angry, they were livid. 4 years, they had lived in his shadow, waiting for the day they'd inherit his empire. His brother, Lawrence, had devoted his life to the business, assuming he'd take the reins. His sister-in-law, Evelyn, had dreamed of the wealth and prestige that would come with it. And Victor's nephew, Mark? He'd made some dangerous enemies, gambling on his future inheritance. For them, Eleanor wasn't just a disappointment, she was a threat. And threats in this family were dealt with swiftly and ruthlessly. Just as I was piecing things together, a cryptic message landed on my desk. It was from one of Victor's rivals, a man who claimed to know secrets that could destroy the Lorne family. He wanted a meeting. Adam and I didn't trust him, but we didn't have the luxury of ignoring leads. What he told us changed everything. Victor had been hiding something, a dark secret about his company's flagship drug trial. And that secret had made him dangerous enemies. Victor's empire wasn't built on innovation alone, it was built on shortcuts. His pharmaceutical company had fast-tracked a new drug that promised to revolutionize treatment for chronic pain. But the trials had uncovered horrifying side effects. Instead of pulling the drug, Victor had buried the data. People had suffered, and some had died. And now, someone in the company was desperate to keep those skeletons locked away. Eleanor didn't just have enemies in her family. She had enemies within Victor's company. The second attempt on her life was bolder, more public. Her car was rigged to explode in the parking lot of her apartment complex. She survived, but it was clear, whoever wanted her dead was escalating. And this time, they didn't care who got caught in the crossfire. Adam's brilliance came into play when he uncovered a financial web connecting Victor's offshore accounts to several suspicious payouts. The payments were traced to shell companies owned by none other than his own family members. The money trail painted a picture of betrayal, a family not just scheming to take control, but possibly funding attempts to eliminate Eleanor. But the money trail wasn't the only thing Adam found. Hidden deep in Victor's encrypted files was a list of trial subjects, many of whom had mysteriously disappeared or died under suspicious circumstances. This wasn't just about greed anymore, it was about silencing victims. And Eleanor? She was the only one who could expose the truth. Victor's company had a secret, an off-the-grid lab where unapproved trials were conducted. We found it in the basement of an abandoned building, miles from the nearest city. What we uncovered there was worse than we imagined. Rows of empty hospital beds, scattered syringes, and files documenting the horrifying side effects of the drug. This wasn't science. This was cruelty. Eleanor wasn't just Victor's daughter. She had worked as a low-level researcher in his company years ago. She had stumbled upon the trial's dirty secrets and confronted her father, which led to their estrangement. But now, with her inheritance and the evidence we uncovered, she realized she held the power to bring justice to those who had suffered. All the pieces came together in Victor's mansion. The mastermind, Victor's own brother Lawrence, had orchestrated the attacks to keep Eleanor from exposing the truth. With nowhere left to run, he confessed, revealing the family's darkest secrets. It wasn't just about money, it was about preserving a legacy built on lies. Lawrence's confession came like a tidal wave, dragging all the hidden truths to the surface. He admitted to orchestrating Victor's death, poisoning him during one of their routine business meetings. He'd assumed that the inheritance would fall to him, but Victor's unexpected will had thrown everything into chaos. To him, Eleanor wasn't family, she was an obstacle. And obstacles, in his world, were eliminated. The drug trial? It was a ticking time bomb that he had desperately tried to cover up, not realizing that Eleanor's survival would be his undoing. While Lawrence unraveled, Adam was busy with another discovery. Deep in the encrypted files, he uncovered a ledger, a detailed list of payouts to silence victims of the drug trial. The payments didn't just implicate Lawrence, they implicated other senior executives in Victor's company. The conspiracy was larger than we had imagined, stretching beyond the family to include corporate greed and corruption at the highest levels. Eleanor faced a choice. She could take her inheritance, walk away, and leave the company to implode under the weight of its own corruption. Or she could fight, use her resources to expose the truth and seek justice for the victims of her father's empire. It was a moment of reckoning, and the weight of it was etched into her face. But Eleanor wasn't her father. She chose to fight. Eleanor didn't waste time. With Adam's help, she organized a press conference to expose the drug trial cover-up. She stood before the cameras, her voice steady as she recounted the horrors buried in the company's past. The world watched as she dismantled the legacy her father and uncle had built, brick by brick. It wasn't just an act of bravery, it was an act of redemption. Lawrence didn't go quietly. As the police led him away, he shouted about how Eleanor had destroyed the family and how Victor would never have wanted this. But his words fell on deaf ears. Justice was finally catching up to the Lorne family, and there was no escape. Just when we thought the case was closed, Adam uncovered one final twist. Among the files was a letter, written by Victor himself. In it, he confessed to knowing about the drug trial's consequences but claimed he was trying to make amends before his death. He had changed his will to leave everything to Eleanor, believing she was the only one who could right his wrongs. It was a bitter realization. Victor's death had been a plea for redemption, silenced before it could be heard. Victor's company didn't survive the scandal. The stock plummeted, lawsuits piled up, and the board dissolved. For the victims of the drug trial, it wasn't enough to undo their pain, but it was a start. And for Eleanor, it was the end of a chapter that had defined her life. She walked away from the wreckage with her head held high, ready to start anew. As I watched Eleanor walk away, I couldn't help but think about the cost of ambition and betrayal. This case had reminded me that power, when unchecked, is as destructive as any weapon. Victor's death wasn't just the end of a life, it was the end of an empire. But for Eleanor, it was the beginning of something far greater, the chance to rewrite her own story. With the weight of Victor's empire crumbled and justice beginning to take shape, Eleanor stood tall. But there was one final hurdle: the board members of Victor's company, who had enabled the corruption. Eleanor used the remaining funds from her inheritance to support the victims' lawsuits, ensuring the enablers couldn't escape accountability. Her determination was unyielding, and her message clear: no one was above the law. As Eleanor closed the chapter on her family's twisted legacy, I found myself reflecting on the tangled web we had uncovered. Justice had been served, but it came at a heavy price. This case wasn't just about the Lorne family. It was a stark reminder of what unchecked ambition can cost. For me, it was another case closed, but for Eleanor, it was the start of a new life.